A millionaire collapsed in the middle of traffic, seconds from death, when a homeless woman no one ever noticed dragged him to safety. But what she didn't know was he carried a secret tied to her own downfall. A twist of fate, a buried past, and an offer that could change everything. Stay with us, because by the end, one life will be redeemed and another exposed. The wind screamed down 6th Street, slicing through layers of coats and skin like it held a grudge. Cars hissed over wet pavement, their headlights cutting through the dark like cold knives. On the corner, barely more than a silhouette under the flickering street lamp, sat Mara, hood drawn low, legs tucked beneath her. Her hands trembled inside fingerless gloves as she nursed a steaming coffee cup someone had left behind hours ago. She wasn't begging. Not tonight. She just wanted to be still. Then came the noise, a screech, a honk, a shout. Across the street, a man in a sharp charcoal suit staggered into the road, as if sleepwalking. His steps were slow, aimless, empty. His briefcase clattered to the sidewalk, forgotten. Horns blared. A delivery truck skidded, tires screaming. Mara moved before she could think. Her feet hit the pavement, and in 2 long strides, she reached him. "Hey, H-E-Y," she shouted, grabbing the man's arm and yanking him back just in time. The truck brushed past, missing them by inches. The cold wind that followed hit like a slap. The man collapsed to his knees, gasping. Mara crouched beside him, eyes scanning his face. He was pale, eyes wide, not drunk, not high. Just gone somewhere inside. "You okay?" she asked, breathless. He nodded slowly, not speaking yet. His voice came out hoarse. "I didn't see it. I didn't even see it coming." She raised an eyebrow. "Yeah. Well, now you've got another chance to." He looked at her then, really looked. His eyes, the color of expensive whiskey, searched hers like they were trying to place a name. But she was a stranger. Just a woman in a torn coat, standing between him and death. Before he could say anything else, she stood up. "Take care of yourself, suit," she muttered, turning away, already disappearing into the shadows. And just like that, she was gone. But he would never forget her face. Not tonight. Not ever. Morning rolled in with gray clouds and breath that still turned to fog. The city was already moving. Horns, footsteps, early risers with somewhere to be. But Mara sat on her usual corner, like always. No one looked at her. Not really. A few tossed coins in her direction, never slowing down, never meeting her eyes. She didn't blame them. She'd gotten used to being invisible. She clutched a plastic bag to her chest. Inside, a folded photo of 2 little girls in a backyard. One of them was her. The other was her sister, Anna. The photo was old, creased, and faded, but it was the only thing Mara kept dry no matter what. "Miss," a volunteer at the soup line leaned down. Young, soft-voiced. "We've got eggs and toast this morning. Want to come in?" Mara offered a faint smile. Maybe later. She didn't need food as much as she needed space that day. Her mind kept circling back to the man from last night, the stranger in the suit. The way his legs gave out. The look on his face when she saved him. She could have walked away. Should have. But something in her, something she hadn't felt in years, moved. A need to act. To protect. Funny how she'd failed to do that when it really mattered. Back when Anna needed her most. Back when their dad died and Mara just couldn't handle the grief. So she disappeared. Into alcohol. Then debt. Then the streets. And shame kept her from ever going back. Across the city, in a towering office with floor-to-ceiling windows, Elliot Kane stared out at the skyline, the mug in his hands long gone cold. His assistant had already gone over the day's agenda. Calls, board meeting, crisis control over the latest leak about the merger. But Elliot wasn't hearing any of it. He saw her, the woman who grabbed him out of the street like her life depended on it. He didn't remember much, just her face. Her voice. The way she walked away like it meant nothing. "Find her," he said suddenly, interrupting the assistant mid-sentence. "Sir, the woman from last night. She saved my life. I want to find her." The assistant looked stunned. "Do you know her name?" Elliot shook his head. "No, but I owe her, and I don't leave debts unpaid." The next evening, Mara sat under the same street lamp, shoulders hunched, coat zipped up to her chin. Her breath clouded in the bitter air, and her fingers, red and raw, curled around a paper cup filled with stale coffee. She heard the footsteps before she saw the shoes. Polished leather, far too clean for this part of town. Her eyes flicked up. It was him, the man from the street, the one she'd pulled out of death's jaws. He looked even more out of place now, standing awkwardly, holding a white paper bag and a look of conflicted gratitude. "You came back," Mara muttered, not sure if it was a question or a warning. "I had to," Elliot said. His voice was soft, almost careful. "You saved my life." She didn't answer. He knelt beside her, not fully sitting, just low enough to close the gap. "I brought food. Not sure what you like, so I got everything." She glanced at the bag, then back at him. "You think that's how this works? A sandwich and it's all square." He exhaled, the breath visible in the air between them. "No, I just wanted to thank you. Really." "You're welcome," she said flatly. "You can go now." But he didn't. "You don't owe me anything, all right," she snapped, her voice a little louder than she meant. "I saw a guy about to die and I did something. That's it. That's all." Elliot looked down for a second, then back at her. "That's not nothing. Most people wouldn't have even noticed. I barely noticed myself. That got her." She blinked, not expecting honesty. "Look," he said after a pause, "I've had a hell of a week. My name's in every paper. My company's on fire, and I'm pretty sure I was ready to walk into traffic and never come back. Then you just appeared. Pulled me out like it was nothing." His voice cracked, and for a second, the CEO exterior slipped. Mara's expression softened just a little. She nodded toward the bench beside her. "You can sit if you want. But I'm not giving you a redemption arc, rich boy." He smiled almost sheepishly. "Fair enough." They sat in silence for a moment, two worlds colliding on cracked pavement and frozen air. Elliot returned the next evening, and the next, always with something in hand. A fresh muffin, thick gloves, a wool scarf. He never forced them on her, just left them nearby, said hi, and sat. Mara pretended not to care. "Guilt snacks again?" she asked dryly one night, nodding at the bakery bag. "Bribery," Elliot replied. "I'm trying to buy your conversation. Expensive way to get ignored." He chuckled. "You're not that easy to ignore." They didn't talk much at first, but silence grew more comfortable between them. Eventually, the space filled with fragments of stories. Mara spoke in pieces, of working late nights at an accounting desk, of walking out after the layoff started and never walking back in, of Wally, the scruffy dog she lost after missing a shelter deadline. "People think you just end up on the street," she said once, eyes fixed on the sidewalk. "They don't realize it's not one big fall. It's 100 little slips. And then it's cold. And you're alone. And it's normal." Elliot didn't speak for a while after that, but he started returning with less food and more presents. One night, he shared his own truth, halting, uncomfortable. "My father built the company," he began, voice low. "Cold man. Everything was numbers. Profits, mergers. People didn't matter." Mara looked at him, something flickering behind her eyes. "I took over because I thought I could do it better. But I've been swallowing my own ambition for so long, I stopped noticing who it was hurting." He pulled out a crumpled paper, an old internal memo from a company he'd recently acquired. It had a list of laid-off employees from years ago. Mara's name was on it. Her breath caught in her throat. "You knew?" she asked. "No," he said, stunned. "Not until this week. I started digging, and I found your file." Something in the air shifted. "That was my last job," she said, voice trembling. "I gave them 5 years. One day I came in, and my desk was gone. No severance. No explanation. Just gone." Elliot's face collapsed with guilt. "I'm sorry." Mara stood, sudden and stiff. "I don't need your sorry. I needed it then, when my rent was overdue. When I couldn't get hired because of restructuring blacklists." Elliot rose with her, unsure whether to follow or stay. "I didn't know, Mara. I swear." She stared at him, hurt, proud, shaking, then walked away into the dark. Elliot couldn't sleep. Back in his penthouse, glass walls, designer silence, and wine he no longer tasted, He stared at the old printed file spread across his dining table. Mara Caldwell, former employee, terminated, consolidation, efficiency realignment, no contact after, no severance, no trail. Her life had disappeared into a spreadsheet. He flipped to a page marked with a post-it, his father's handwritten note. Close quickly, dead weight. That's what she was to them. A line item, collateral damage. But to him, now she was the person who'd pulled him back from the edge. Not just physically, existentially. Elliot picked up his phone, then set it down, then picked it up again. Meanwhile, Mara sat awake under the bridge near the river walk, the scarf Elliot gave her wrapped tight around her neck. She kept replaying his words, his face, the file in his hands. Was it his fault? Maybe not directly, but the world he came from, the cold, white-collar machinery, was. Her emotions twisted in on themselves. Guilt, anger, something deeper, betrayal wrapped in the illusion of kindness. And worse, she had started to care. The next morning, Elliot showed up again. This time, he didn't bring food or gloves, just himself. Mara, he said softly, stopping a few feet away. She stood, arms crossed. I know you don't want to see me, but I need you to hear this. She didn't stop him. Not yet. My father's company was responsible. That layoff, it wasn't just business. It was greed. Pure greed. I didn't know then, but now I do. And I can't pretend it didn't happen. Mara's jaw clenched. So what do you want? Forgiveness? Closure? No, he said, shaking his head. I want to make it right. She laughed once. Bitter. You can't rewrite what's already done. I know, Elliot replied. But maybe I can give you a different ending. For a long time, she said nothing. Then finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, I used to think my life meant something, that I mattered, until one email ended everything. She looked up, and now the man tied to that email is standing in front of me because I saved his life. Elliot's eyes were glassy. I wish it was anyone but me. But it was you, she said. They sat on opposite sides of the same bench. Neither spoke for a long time. Behind them, the city moved, cars hummed, people passed, oblivious. But on that bench, time had folded into something quieter, something honest. I wanted to believe you were just another stranger, Mara said, voice rough from the cold, or maybe from holding things in too long. Easier that way. Elliot watched her. Why didn't you tell me? When you saw the file, Mara let out a hollow breath. Because I didn't want it to be about that. About pity. It's not pity. It's always pity, she snapped, then caught herself. Softer now, and I didn't want to hate you. Not after everything. Elliot leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You didn't just pull me out of traffic, Mara. You reminded me I'm human, not just some face on a Forbes list. She smirked. Don't flatter me, Kane. But the smile faded fast. You're offering me something, aren't you? She asked, watching his posture, his eyes. A check. A house. A thank you for saving me package. He shook his head. I'm offering you choice. She narrowed her eyes. I've set up a fund in your name, Elliot explained. It's not just for you. It's for women like you, who fell through the cracks, who were never given a real second chance. She stared at him. Disbelief, anger, awe, all tangled together. And you think that fixes everything, she asked. No, he said gently. But maybe it's a place to start. Mara looked down at her gloves. Frayed, torn at the fingertips. She could feel the raw wind pushing through them. I thought silence protected me, she murmured. If I didn't speak, if I didn't blame anyone, I couldn't be hurt again. And Elliot asked quietly. She looked up, tears in her eyes. I was wrong. A pause. Then finally she reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded photo, the one of her and her sister in a sunny backyard. I haven't seen her in 8 years, she said. I think it's time. Elliot nodded. I'll help you get there. Whatever you need. She smiled soft and sad. I don't need money, Elliot. I just needed someone to listen. 2 weeks later, the corner of 6th and Elm was quiet. The bench was empty. The scarf was gone. So was Mara. In a small diner off the interstate, sunlight spilled across a booth where Mara sat alone, backpack at her side, hands cradling a hot cup of coffee. She stared out the window, watching buses come and go. Next to her was an envelope, thick, unopened, not filled with money but documents, bus tickets, a prepaid phone, a handwritten note from Elliot. For your next beginning. I'm proud to know you. She didn't cry. She smiled. Across the city, a new sign was mounted over the front door of a transitional housing center. The Caldwell Foundation, for women who deserve another chance. Elliot stood across the street, coat buttoned, hands in his pockets, watching the staff set up for opening day. His name wasn't anywhere on the building. That was her request. Let the world remember her, not him. Back at the diner, Mara finally pulled the photo from her jacket again. The same one she'd carried through rain, hunger, and years of silence. She took a breath, reached for the payphone by the window, dialed the number she'd memorized a lifetime ago. It rang once. Then a voice answered, shaky, hopeful, familiar. Hello. Mara closed her eyes, her voice cracking like frost beneath spring sun. Hey, Anna. It's me.